Hey, it just ended. What the heck? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Lab podcast. Obviously, if you're here, then you've understood that we are realtors and we want to share value with everybody every week. So you've got JJ, Randy, and myself, and our information is below. And also, we've got our little name tags. But today, let's talk about our special guests. So the focus of today is red flags in inspections, because getting a home inspection, especially in a place like Austin, Texas, where we're rife with maybe foundational problems, maybe roofing issues, maybe a lot of new builds that you wouldn't anticipate need an inspection, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to dig into that today. I'm going to introduce both Heidi and Jen. Heidi and Jen, thank you for joining us today. Please introduce yourselves.
Well, I'll start off. I'm Jen Riley, and I am the owner and founder of Doyenne Inspections, which is an all-female home inspection company here in the greater Austin area. And Heidi?
My name is Heidi Rivera, and I am also an owner. I joined Jennifer just in 2020, and just enjoy working with her and enjoy being a home inspector.
Randy, JJ, did you hear that? All women home inspection team. What do you think about that?
I think it's a pretty genius idea that I hadn't even considered to be a unique feature that really does benefit clients in a lot of ways. Ladies are looking at different things when we're walking through a house. And so it's important to have everybody's perspective, of course, but I'm sure that there's something very special coming from an all-female team. I'm eager to get to know some more about it.
I love it. I see that fairly often in the real estate, like a real estate team, but not an inspector team.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's pretty badass.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredible.
We ladies, we're really great at picking things out, letting you know that it's wrong, giving you a list of things that need to be fixed. Detailed list.
I love that you said that. Letting people know when things are wrong. That transparency, I think, is why people need inspectors. And I don't even know if they know that, right? People are buying houses and they're like, well, I'm going to a new build. Why do I need an inspector? They inspect it all themselves. Can you explain why people should consider getting an inspection anyway, even if it is a new build or a resale home?
Sure. I can take that one. I was going to say, when you're talking about details, one of the things I tell most people about our company, or just in general, is that I think women make great home inspectors because our main job is to find problems. And you ask any man out there, women can find problems with anything. So my job is to go into a place, find as many problems as I can. I'm not allowed to fix them. In fact, entirely not allowed to. And all I need to do is communicate that with setting expectations to buyers. And I think that women tend to do a really good job on the communication side. And so when I got into this, I was in school, had no intention of becoming an all-female home inspection company. However, I found out in school that only 3% of women nationwide are home inspectors.
Wow.
That is lower than any form of the military, than coal miners, even firefighters. And so I was so surprised by that, that I said, hey, there's got to be a niche for this specifically. But Ann, you asked about new construction. So why would you need one in new construction? Well, everyone needs an advocate for them. And I feel like, especially in today's market with buying a home, besides the realtor, and if you don't work with a realtor and just go straight through the builder themselves, you definitely need a home inspector. But I advise a professional in both areas, because the builder is concerned about bottom line cost. Yes, they want to make you happy, but they are concerned about passing inspections. Not necessarily making sure that everything is the way it should be. And a lot get missed on pass or fail inspections. So that's why we're the last set of eyes before a home closes. And typically it's just miscommunications or subcontractors, and things get missed. We typically almost find as many in a new construction as we do, a resale home, just because of cutting corners.
Yeah.
So, Randy, do you see how many of your buyers, percentage wise, how many of your buyers get a home inspection and how many of them end up having issues on that inspection report?
Unfortunately, only like 50% of my clients on new construction end up going for that inspector, even though I push pretty hard for it every time, because the other 50% of my clients that have done the home inspection, it's rather amazing, you know, how long the list is. And it's not a scary list. It's not identifying an enormous problem with the home build, but it's certainly a lot of things that the builder, the team was just going to move on and not address. And if we have the house opened up already, why not go ahead and address those problems? So I can understand why it's not, you know, if the clients don't understand the process, they're just beginning their journey where the ink is still wet on the contract. I can see why they wouldn't want to sign up for more costs on that end, but it really is every single time in each of those phases that a long list of things comes up. So,
and I think
JJ,
it's important what you said is that at the different phases. So, you know, that in a new build, there are several phases that we can come in and do an inspection that are very important because each of those, as they go to the next phase, that first phase is covered up. So before you pour your foundation, once that's poured, you can't see any of those things anymore. Once the framing is up and they put up the walls, you can't see those things anymore. So it is very important in a new build to have one at each stage so that you are ensured that things are being done from the bottom up.
And having that professional report as a, you know, adding to your paper trail for anything that does come up for you down the way is certainly a huge, important benefit that you just don't really see until you have it and you realize like, well, this is important evidence, just in case.
And think about this, like when, you know, if there's an instance or something that happens once the walls are up, once you've lived in the house for a little while and you've had those phase inspection, the pre-drywall, those photos from there, you can actually locate where things are, where pipes are, where wires are, where ductwork is possibly. We take hundreds of photos every time we do an inspection. So it's like a snapshot in time. And it's, I mean, you really have a history of the build of your home and can see where things are before they are covered up.
When you visit a new construction community too, it's really rather impressive how large the operation is. There's, you know, 7, 8, a dozen teams out there hammering away, doing a lot of work, which is neat in its own way. But then for my individual house, it's like, how much attention have you really paid to it though? And so that's where you have paid the inspector to come in and just spend the 3-4 hours on your house.
And one thing I like to say is it could be a great plan. It could be a great architect. It could be a great engineer. But it's only as great as the people that are working on it. And a lot of times one trade does not talk to the other or, you know, something that someone does here affects what the next person does. So, you know, there's, like you said, there's so many moving parts to it. And so that's why it's, you know, it's important to see it at those different stages to make sure everything is, you know, going along as it should.
Speaking of moving parts here, I was curious to break it down to the listeners. I've heard wires, pipes, trades. What does the inspection include? Explain to these buyers what y'all are looking at here.
Well, in Texas, basically the entire home, we are going to break down every aspect of it. In Texas, we are the only state where we have a required form. So it has a scope of inspection, things that we're required to do, and then things that are outside of the scope. And their expectations set up front, which, you know, is important for people to know. You know, we cannot see through walls, believe it or not. You know, so the most important phrase I tell people is that an inspection is a limited visual inspection. We can only see what we can see. If there's furniture in the way, we can move some stuff, but you can't move everything, you know, and we can't move people's personal belongings and do a lot of stuff like that. So what is included? We start with the foundation. We look at the framing, walls, interior and exterior. operate every door, every window in the home, go into the attic. Roof, we are either going to walk the roof if we can, if it's 2-story or higher, or weather is bad, we're going to drone the roof instead. We get great aerial images that way, and you can see in places that you might not feel comfortable walking in. So either way, that roof is going to get seen. And then from the inside, HVAC, run the heating, run the AC. We are going to test every single appliance in the home, checking floors, checking ceilings, and ductwork. One thing people don't realize a lot is that we actually take the covers off the electrical panels and view the wiring inside, because that is just a cover. But outside of that, it's not invasive. So other than some specific tools we use that we're not required to, like a drone, we also use thermal imaging and moisture meters. But, back in the day, someone was like, what's the best moisture meter you have? Your hand, is it wet? But, at the same time, there's great tools that we can incorporate. And one of our goals is to be in the latest technology and using the highest equipment that we can, and be knowledgeable of that, because there are things out there outside the scope that we can add to the value of the inspection that maybe another inspector couldn't do.
And awesome. Why is a moisture meter important?
There's a lot of stains on ceilings that have probably been there forever, and they fixed the actual problem, but they don't care about the cosmetic nature. And so setting expectations is a leak stain is a lot different than an actual active leak. So you can fix a cosmetic problem. And so we want to find out, what they are really, or if it's something active. So
that's always. And in the other cases of using the moisture meter, there are times when you'll see just anomalies on ceilings, and the moisture meter can tell you if it's high moisture levels, even if there's no stain there. So sometimes you'll see like where parts are peeling off of the ceiling, and it's like, oh, it might just be a peeling, but really it's water damage. It just hasn't made the stain yet. So that's helpful. And thermal imaging coupled with the moisture meter is also very helpful, because thermal imaging shows the difference in temperature. So sometimes I have found leaks where I'll see a stain, use my moisture meter and it's dry, but when I use my thermal imaging, I will see a stain. I've seen a moisture stain that's over to the right, and then put my moisture meter there and it's high level. So those two together can help pinpoint leaks as well.
And JJ, insulation, also like electrical panels that maybe have like a hot breaker. Those are all things that it's great to have thermal imaging for, because you can't see these things with the naked eye. And so it helps you have this extra, sense that most people don't have just by using that equipment. So I'm grateful that we have tools like that now to use.
Awesome.
JJ, for new construction, do you how many inspections do you recommend your clients in most cases?
I say talk to the inspectors about multi-phase, and I think I should let them take it from here.
Do you say that something similar, or Randy?
Oh yeah. I encourage them to get an attorney to review the enormous 100-page contract, a couple $100 for that. And then I encourage them to get the multi-phase inspection for new construction, because the builder is not looking out for us. It's great if they end up being that way, but I'm just going to always assume that they're not. And so every time I'm always encouraging them, but in the end, it's hard to push somebody into spending more money.
So what's something that we do at Doyenne, which I think is an awesome deal. In fact, I know it is that when you book 2 inspections, we give you 10% off each of those inspections.
And that's great.
Yeah, and if you book 3 or more, so we have 4 total, then you get 20% off each of those inspections. So it's a really good deal. It can take off $100 of each inspection, if depending on the cost of the inspection. But we offer that as as an incentive for people to get those phase inspections, because we think they're really important.
That's great.
So did I just hear you say that someone could save, 200, 400 based on the type of inspection if they booked it that way versus individually?
Mm.
Okay. I
Correct.
just wanted that
Yep.
clarity. That's
Yes,
good.
exactly. So yeah, if you book and pay for 2, 3, 4 inspections, then you will receive that discount on each of the inspections.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any thoughts on inspections outside of a purchase?
I was actually going to say, after every home inspection that I go through with my clients, I always think like I should really get my home inspected, just because look at all this great information you've just learned about the house. And it was kind of just recently that I learned that that's like, duh, of course you can have that done in service. And so great idea to make sure to be up to date of what's going on with your place.
So I had recently someone who did that. They lived in their house for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
They live close to the lake, so they have that moist air. It's a 2-story house. They've had additions on it. So the inspection, she tells me still that she still uses the inspection for tradespeople that come out to do work that's been identified in the inspection. So very helpful that way.
Yeah.
It's like a checkup for the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that. And that applies to anybody who has lived in a house for a while and they just want to know more about it. Even if so, you could have bought a house and never got the inspection back then, or just didn't want to spend the money. And, now's a good time. But also, if you're listing a house, how many of you employ that? Have you ever had that discussion, JJ or Randy, about that?
I definitely always present it. I mean, it's a completely different strategy as far as listing, but some people prefer that because they don't want to go through what are they going to find in the option period. And so we can resolve that by just getting it done ahead of time. And it's, a completely different strategy of how to list your home and what will be involved in the process. But I do like just having that known upfront so that we don't have to cross our fingers and hold our breath during the buyer's option period. The buyer will still get their own inspection, but there shouldn't be any surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, in California, I think it's required.
Yes.
Like you have to get an inspection. And I'm like, I heard that and I thought, why? I mean, we're in Texas.
You have to get an inspection as a buyer? As the buyer you do?
No. As a listing. If you're listing a house, you have to provide that disclosure.
Wow.
Because how do you disclose what you don't know? Because that's happening right now. Everybody's like, unknown.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and then lately, with how much people are overbidding and buyer's remorse is becoming more and more of a thing. I mean, some lawsuits are going to be coming back, and so a pre-inspection. There's some argument to be made of like how that could actually hurt you in that way, but just trying to disclose as much as possible of like, I've really done everything I can to share with you what I know about this place. And so, and then you chose to pay that amount for it. So off you go.
Yeah. In fact, I had someone that I just did a pre-listing for, and he said, I'm selling the house as is, but this inspection will show, what needs to be fixed. So I'm going to be presenting that to any offers. But I'm selling it as is. I'm not fixing anything. So
a little nugget for people who aren't using one of our awesome realtors on this channel, right? It says as is pending inspection, right? On the contract. Okay. I just want to point that out. Like, don't be silly. You can say as is all you want. Everybody's still going to check.
Even when buyers waive option period, they're still going to get their inspection done and they're still going to come and ask for stuff. So
absolutely.
Hey, Randy, you were mentioning about, getting that pre-listing inspection just so you know what's going to come up and you don't have to fear that option period time. I used to find that was the case with a lot of them. And then recently I've been finding that it's really just the best way to be a seller in this market. And not have to deal with a bunch of back and forth because it is a seller's market.
Yeah.
People are just getting it to be transparent and say, look, here are all the things that are wrong. I am selling it as is, but nothing is negotiable because we're giving you up front. The only thing that you could negotiate is if you find something that our inspector missed. And they would spend that, $500 to $700 up front to save the hassle of back and forth, seller negotiations and nickel and diming this and that. And I think buyers feel more confident about making an offer when they have a licensed inspector
Yes.
that does the report, because we have to report things as we see them. We don't, have skin in the game at all. So
Yes. That is a really good point, because Texas is, and going back to the as-is discussion, Texas is an as-is state. So when you do go into contract, you're purchasing the home as is, and then you have this option period that gives you that window to then decide if there's more things you need to consider. But if you have that inspection up front, now the home is as is in that way. And so you're right, all the negotiations have been done up front in that offer price. So when the buyer comes back and says, the HVAC is broken, I'm like, well, that was in the pre-inspection report, and you should have known that whenever you submitted your original offer. So there's no need for us to even talk about it right now.
Right.
Ooh, harsh. but good, right? Like, our job is to protect our buyers and our sellers, and that's exactly it. Like, you have that. JJ, would you that was good, right? I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, do you sell your clients' data? How do you feel about that? It's a rhetorical question. I know you don't. I was asking it because...
No, we don't. Yes, no, we don't. So the software that we use,
we're talking about reporting software, right?
Yeah, the reporting software that we use is one of the few that does not sell your information. And they don't plan on doing that, and you would not stay with them if they did that. So I don't know if people know that, but there are some companies that are being bought out by like insurance companies or other type of companies like that, that are mining your data and then using that to push you to buy things or use their insurance or whatever it is, whatever it may be. They're selling your data. So our software is not doing that. It's one of the great things about our software, among other great things. We love our software very much, right, Jen?
Yes, I was actually going to say it's something that new, I think, that has come to surface since data is gold now, is the people realize that before a person closes on a home, the home inspector is typically the first one to have that information about who's going to be new at a property. So until closing, there's this 30-day period where the home inspector has the best data on that person coming in. And so we're getting approached by companies all over, wanting that. And one thing I found kind of sneaky lately is that some of these bigger insurance companies that own the software, they are using that. It is in the fine print, and a customer may not know that their home inspector is using a software that they're signing an inspection agreement that says, I'm okay with my data being sold. And the reason that has come up is I've had some people call and say, hey, I just got an email from my homeowner's insurance, and they said, hey, can you send us the latest copy of the report? And I said, do not send them anything. You aren't even required to have an inspection. So that is your information. You paid for it. It is not theirs to have. The only thing they're going to use it for is denying a claim. But they do it all sneaky, like, yeah, just send me over the latest, copy of the inspection, like they have the right to that information, and they don't. And so if you have encountered any companies that do that, there are insurance companies that do not do that. So I would switch companies because it's your report.
Company, do they know, like, would you say every inspection company that has that software, would they know that software, or how does that work?
Every home inspector that has it, they might not know, but that's what I'm saying. Every client that is doing their due diligence on an inspector, it's now become an issue where maybe 2 years ago, I would have said, ask what inspection software they're using. I wouldn't have had to say that, but now I would tell anybody, if I could tell you one thing leaving before here, is when doing your due diligence to find an inspector, that's a question to actually bring up. Is there any third-party software that you use that could get my information from this? Because
are the insurance companies using it just for advertising purposes, or also for the denying
claims, denying roofing claims, denying foundation claims? Yes.
Wow.
Follow the money.
And but they don't show anywhere, and most people don't know. They don't know hey, I'm not supposed to send this over. They just hear, hey, send me a copy, and they think they should. So to any realtors out there listening to this, this is something that has come up a lot the last year. So warn your clients about it.
I've done a couple things in life, had different jobs and all that sort of stuff. One of the things that I moonlighted with was selling door to door. What is it? Like security. I only did it for like a couple weeks to see how it worked. And these people walk up to your door and they know what your income is. They know how many kids you have. They know what your loan amount for the house is in a lot of cases. And this is one of those methods that they get that information. So if you're getting a knock on your door asking to buy something like a water softener system and you just moved in, this is how it's happening.
Okay.
So important for you to understand that. And it's not just inspectors. It could be your insurance provider, like Jen and Heidi said. It could be, what else? It could be the builder, right? It could be the title company. So you just got to understand how your data is working, because if you're not paying for it, guess who's the commodity? You are. You're the one that's being sold and traded. The thing is, now you're paying for it and still the commodity. Right? They need to hold on to that big data, they being all these companies. So what else do we need to talk about?
I was curious, is there like a year built where where issues seem kind of all right, and then there's a certain year where it seems to start picking up, like a 10-year-old house, a 15-year-old house? I know there's a lot of factors, like what neighborhood.
2021? I didn't say that.
Now it just suck. No.
That's a great question, JJ. There's actually, I would say it more ebbs and flows. There's definitely not one year that if you find a house built in 66, you're in luck. It's not like that, but there are problems in certain windows that we know what to look out for. A few examples would be, 60s and 70s, there was aluminum wiring used in houses.
Yeah.
In the 80s, they used owl flex or flex duct material as ductwork in the attics and in the walls, and it was notorious for problems. So any 80s home I go into, I immediately think that's going to be one of the things that's going to come up. Then, you guys know this as realtors, there's the asbestos that could be in popcorn ceilings, anything pre-78. So you're looking for that. But personally, I prefer a home built in the 80s or 90s. I even like some 70s homes, just because you can bring things up to code easier. But the quality of materials, you may get 6-inch walls instead of 4-inch walls. It's just they're not built with as many corners cut as they do now, with less plastic fixtures, things like that. So I actually prefer a resale home, probably from the 70s to 90s, before some of the problems started.
You got a neighborhood in mind? Where you're like,
you
this is
find
built
a
like a
house
tank.
in Austin right now, you're lucky. So, having specifics about the house is just a luxury at this point that no one has time for. But yeah, the something we see a lot lately has been windows. In the 90s, early 2000s, they did a lot of double pane metal windows. And you go into any 90s or early 2000s home, and they're all fogged up with condensation. And it is because those windows, they conduct heat and cool because they're metal, they rust, and the seals break, and then condensation gets in. So now we have vinyl windows, they're waterproof. They don't conduct the heat as cool as much. So when I hear, hey, I'm going into a 2002 home, I'm expecting that every window is probably going to have condensation in it. So that's one of those things where it's just like you look for specific things in certain years.
Yeah.
There's not any golden years or anything like that.
I like how you
That
broke
reminds
that down.
me of like your vehicles. Remember when you had to go get those headlight cleaning kits for your vehicles? Because they were and it was always a certain year, like a certain decade.
Yeah.
So, and for anybody that's watching this on, YouTube, Facebook, or listening to it on Apple, Google, any other podcasting site, Spotify, I don't know if you can tell this already, but Jen and Heidi and their team, they have construction backgrounds. They really thoroughly know what they're talking about. They're not just, randomly saying things. And I'm not saying that that's the case for other inspection companies. It's just in this industry, there are a lot of people that claim an expertise, period. That's my soapbox. So, yeah, I think that's really good. We talked about the software. There are two things I want to point out. One thing, I remember I had a client who was buying a resale house, but never owned a house before. And I believe, Heidi, it was you, graciously, I paid you, of course, but graciously went out and walked the client through as if it were a new build, right? Like, and went through the new home orientation for a resale client. When that happened, I thought, this is a game changer. How many people have never been through an orientation because they've never bought a brand new construction home?
Well,
and their water heater.
Would you want to address what's typical if, like, is the buyer around? Do they hang out with you? Do you meet them at the end? What do you see there?
So we prefer that there's no one there while we do the inspection. First of all, it helps us focus. We have a routine. Each of us has a way that we do to make sure that we are hitting everything. So it's better if no one's there. It's great if it's vacant because there's no furniture and things in the way. But if someone, nowadays we have to be flexible because of COVID and because people are working at home. So we can do it while someone's there. We invite the client to come at the end of the inspection for a walkthrough, and that doesn't matter if it's a new house or even a pre-listing or an existing home. And I think that does set us apart because we do spend a good amount of time at the end walking through the interior and exterior of the home and going through all the things that we found. We may not hit every single solitary thing that we found, but we will go around and show the general items and show them visually. And then in addition to what we found as deficiencies, we're also going to show features of the home. We like to show where your GFCI resets are for your garage, for your bathrooms, for your kitchen. Sometimes they're in weird places from your exterior outlets. Those are the resets for those are in weird places sometimes. Couldn't find one. I don't even know if
people know what GFCI is.
Okay, so that's GFCI means ground fault circuit interrupter, which is a protection for if the circuit is interrupted, it opens up that circuit so it stops the electricity flow. And it's those outlets that you see that have the little test reset button. Usually you'll have one or two in your kitchen, and that will, if any of your outlets or your receptacles are tripped, that you'll use that to reset it. So we'd like to show people where you do that because one will reset many receptacles. They're in a chain usually.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I usually say wet areas. So if there's going to be water in that area ever, there's usually a GFI circuit.
Yes. But now there's a little bit higher requirements. Lately, they've it's required in all garage outlets now. It doesn't, even if there's water in the garage or not. It's required in the laundry room. It's required in all the kitchen outlets. It's required in dining areas now. It used to be 6 feet uninterrupted space. Now it is 6 feet from the edge of the base of a sink, even if it's through a door. So those change, and there are several new requirements in 2022 for electric, including a surge protector at your electrical box, tamper-resistant receptacles, but those are for homes that are built in 2022. So although we may mention those in the report, the statement will be that although your house wasn't built in this year, this is the requirement today, and if you ever do an upgrade, then you should upgrade to meet today's standards. So those are some things that but going back to your question about the walkthrough is that we spend a lot of time on the walkthrough. We show people how to turn their gas off. We show people just the features of their home, cool things about their home that we find.
Yeah.
So I know Jennifer has a great walkthrough at the end of her inspections. I aspire to be as awesome as her in her walkthrough. I'm always trying to get better.
You get to be a tour guide to a person's biggest investment that they were excited about.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's a different perspective, right? Like a realtor is going to have a different perspective from like a lender and a title person. Everybody wants to add to their story and build upon their story, but everyone handles it very different. And I think the inspection part of it is like, that's probably one of the most intimate parts of their story.
Well, nice. we spend about 3 hours in the home, and they probably spend about 15 minutes before they put their life savings down on the home, just viewing it in today's market. And so we do get intimate with that home, and then we have all that information to give them. And that's when they actually learn about the property. It's not the falling in love with it. And I usually tell people that we get to be that emotional barrier that, to keep them from being so focused on a school district or a bay window or something in the house that they just love, and see the full picture as an investment and what you might have to put into it for this result. And I kind of like the psychology of working with clients in that way. It could be a real bummer delivering bad news, but at the same time, I mean, they need to hear it, but they need to hear it within expectations. So
listen, I think that we could sit and pick your brain for at least 3 hours, since that's how long inspections take. But we do have to get rolling just because we're over time, and we appreciate everybody. We definitely appreciate you. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that?
They could give us a call. It's 512-655-9940. We also text. And you can come to our website, DoyenneInspections.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and, all the other places. But feel free to find us easily online.
I love it. Heidi, once again, thank you. JJ, Randy, anything you want? Any parting words?
No, I don't think so. I'm excited to add you guys to my, referral list. It was a really great chat. Thanks for your time.
That's awesome. Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate it. It was so nice to meet you, JJ.
Y'all did remind me how awesome inspections are, because you do learn, like, there's falling in love with the house, but there's how does this work? Because you can fall in love with houses, but I learned so much from inspections. It's great.
Oh yeah, I might need you to come over and inspect my house, actually.
Thanks everyone for watching. See you guys next week.